There's now a version of BSNES, my favorite Super Nintendo emulator, that includes the latency-reducing Runahead mode. And while it's still in alpha stage, I want to break out the high-speed camera and see if we could test its lag. Before I begin, I just want to be very clear that this is not some in-depth analysis of BSNES. This is just a quick and fun test to satisfy my own curiosity, as I haven't really spent a lot of time with BSNES in the past year, and there's been so many enhancements and additions to it, and I really just wanted to get a basic idea of what to expect from emulation latency. Someday I'll go back and do a full deep dive with this stuff, as well as finish a full video on latency as well. So please just consider this a fun little test and really take it for what it is. And I'll explain later exactly why you wouldn't really want to hold this as exact measurements, but hopefully you'll still enjoy it. So let's jump right in and start doing some baseline testing. To start out, I connected original SNES hardware through the OSSC into my computer monitor, which I'd previously measured with a time sleuth and found that it only had a few milliseconds of lag. I then loaded Super Metroid and used my LED modded controller to measure the average time it takes for Samus to shoot after the button was pressed. Now, please keep in mind that this isn't a perfect way to measure, as it could always be off by about 1 or 2 frames. I'll have a much more detailed post on what this is and why soon, but in short, if the button command is read before the frame is being drawn, then you could see readings of around 16 milliseconds faster than if it was read after the frame is being drawn. There's also the fact that Samus's gun isn't locked to always shoot exactly the same way, and if you press the button rapidly, you could see it fire at a different pace. So once again, not a perfect measurement, but a decent real-world test to see how things compare. It looks like our baseline measurements range between 57 and 83 milliseconds, or 3 to 5 frames. This averages to about 4 frames, which is exactly what I'd expect and a decent general number to start from. So now let's move on to measure BSNES on my desktop PC with a USB controller that also has an LED installed. I'll start with Runahead turned off to get a baseline reading there. Here we're showing latency between 66 and 113 milliseconds, or 3 to 7 frames of latency, about 2 frames more than an original console. That's not bad at all, although the wider gap between the varying delay might be noticeable to some people. Now let's check out my desktop PC with Runahead mode set to 1 frame. This time we range between 57 and 116 milliseconds, pretty much no difference from when it was off. So here's what I think's happening. My desktop PC has an older 2nd generation i7 processor with a GeForce GTX 1070 graphics card and 16 gigs of RAM. It seems to be working fine in 4x video mode without Runahead turned on, and you can hear the audio sounds perfect. You can see here that once I turn on Runahead, even just to 1 frame, the emulation slows down and you can hear audio distortion. That means my PC isn't fast enough to take advantage of BSNES's Runahead mode, which also means your average computer probably won't be fast enough either. Now I'll try my laptop, which has a much newer 8th generation i7 processor with 32 gigs of RAM and a GeForce RTX 2070 graphics card. This is a much more powerful machine, and the emulation seems to work fine in all Runahead modes. After measuring, this laptop has a baseline reading of between 48 and 85 milliseconds, which is about the same as original hardware. Now please keep in mind that this is a part of the game with nothing else on the screen but Samus, and no new data is coming by. The only processing is Samus's shooting. Still, that's really impressive for software emulation, and we haven't even turned on Runahead mode yet. Now with Runahead mode on, it looks like we're getting between 37 and 74 milliseconds, between 2 and 5 frames. That's pretty impressive, as it shows that it's technically possible to sometimes have a reaction that's faster than the original console. Now, please don't take this out of context and think that emulation is faster than original hardware. This is a controlled test in one basic part of the game. I imagine if I chose a part of the game like a boss fight with tons of information on the screen, then it wouldn't perform as well. But it does demonstrate that Runahead is working and shows some potential for people with really fast computers. I then tried raising the Runahead to 4 frames, and it didn't make much of a difference. I didn't expect it to though, as this wasn't a high latency game to begin with, and there's only so much you could skip ahead. For your use, I'd recommend sticking to 1 or 2 frames and seeing how it performs. So there you have it. I just proved that BSNES's Runahead mode is working, and that even though this is an alpha build, it's showing a ton of great potential. And those 2 points are really the entire point of this video. I certainly don't want anybody to read into this and think that I'm telling everybody to go replace their original consoles with software emulation, because it's still not a perfect recreation of the original experience. Now, it's very close, so if you choose to go the route of software emulation, there's a bunch of great options now, and BSNES is my personal favorite. I just want to make sure that I'm being clear about all this stuff, and that this is just a fun video to see how BSNES is working. One thing's for sure though, it's certainly a sign that software emulation has come a really long way, and as more computer hardware starts to progress, we have a lot to look forward to in the future. Thanks for watching. If you liked what you saw here, please subscribe and check out the weekly podcast that keeps people in the loop of everything going on in the retro gaming scene. Also, if you'd like to see more of these videos and more of this in-depth analysis, please consider signing up for any of the support services like Patreon or Subscribestar, because your support is what keeps these going. Thanks very much, and I'll see you next time.